Hello, boys and girls. Today we're gonna talk about the Greek philosophy of the people who really liked boys and occasionally girls. We'll discuss one of the most prominent and most misunderstood schools of the Hellenistic philosophy, Epicureanism. What is Epicureanism in a nutshell? First, let's take a look at three adjectives: Epicurean, Stoic, Cynical. All of these adjectives have roots in the schools of the Hellenistic philosophy: Epicureanism, Stoicism, and Cynicism. These adjectives don't really describe any of the schools I've just mentioned, and actually are quite misleading in this aspect. And the most misleading of the words is Epicurean, which basically means fond of luxury or indulgence in sensual pleasures. It has almost nothing to do with the philosophy of Epicureanism. As many times was told, if Epicurus, the founder of the school, saw the food recipes on epicurus.com, he'd be very, very surprised. First of all, Epicureanism is not really hedonism. Well, technically it is, but not in a way as we understand hedonism now. It is a noble or, relatively noble and I should say Socratic philosophy. Like pretty much any Hellenistic school, Epicureanism is about happiness. Happiness is the ultimate goal. It was founded by a man called Epicurus. Well, obviously. So Epicurus taught that happiness is easily achievable, and the road to happiness lies through pleasure, because pleasure is like the best thing in life, according to Epicurus. So far, so good. Epicureanism remains quite Epicurean, but that's when it becomes tricky. Once this formula of pleasure is good was established, Epicurus started to analyze pleasure. And he was doing this in a very Socratic manner, comparable to what is done in Plato's dialogue Philebus. We don't really know if Philebus was an influence on Epicurus, but it's very probable. Just to give you a timeline, Epicurus lived in Athens. Originally, he was from Samos, in a generation right after Plato. It is believed that Epicurus was born a few years before Plato's death. And is a serious philosopher. There is no question that he read Plato. On a side note, you should read Philebus too. Okay, so the main idea goes like this. All pleasures have corresponding pains. The most commonly used example is drinking. If you drink a lot of wine, it's quite nice. You can get a lot of pleasure out of that. But if you're drinking too much, you can do things that may damage you. And even if you don't, you might have a terrible, horrible hangover the next day. So you will pay for your pleasure. Now you can go and make a list of pleasures and possible consequences. And if your name is Epicurus, you'd want to minimize the amount of pain and probably come up with a list of simple pleasures that won't harm you. So Epicurus, this epitome of moderation, figured out that you'd better abstain from wine and drink only water. You'd better eat bread or other simple and easily obtainable food. You don't really need luxurious food or any luxurious belongings. You only get attached to it. You get wrong and harmful desires. Keep it simple. You probably should abstain from sex. Corresponding complications are too many. If you want to start a family, it's not a very good and not a very well thought idea. You probably need some sort of communication with other people. And that's what friendship is for. Friendship is one of the best things in life. And don't feed your pride, don't chase fame, don't get involved in politics, don't draw attention. Live in obscurity. Now, we don't know if the followers of Epicurus really observed all of these ascetic principles, but they definitely took it into account to some extent. Initially, Epicureanism functioned like let's put it this way, like a cult. Epicurus founded what was called the garden, a piece of property which most likely included an actual garden with trees and stuff, and a place of meeting for the members of his community. The garden also became a name for the school itself. As far as we can tell, the founder was worshipped a bit like a god, although our perception can be a little bit clouded due to the limited number of sources and continuous slandering of Epicureanism from all of the schools of philosophy, most notably by its archenemy, Stoicism. The entry point, so to speak, of Stoicism was that pleasure is not good, suffering is not bad, because none of it is really under our control. So they naturally disliked philosophy built around pleasure seeking, even if the pleasure seekers were in fact more ascetic than Stoics themselves. Also, the ideas of sit still and stay hydrated seemed like a very weak foundation for building and moving forward the human society. Keep calm and slit your wrists when the time is right was a much more progressive approach. The physics of Epicureanism was also quite different from most of the schools. And when I say physics, I mean the part of philosophy dealing with how the world works and the general cosmology. Epicureans were atomists. Their theory was derived from the works of Democritus, but in a slightly transformed way. The atoms are the smallest indivisible particles. Everything in the world is made out of these particles. And this is where we got our word atom from Democritus. But it was before electrons and stuff. The atom of Democritus and Epicureans is the smallest thing possible. It was an interesting but weird theory compared to the normal stuff like, say, fire in the center of the universe, pneuma, the spirit, the mixture of fire and air that bonds everything, and celestial spheres, the real and most perfect world of forms, etc. Epicurus added his little spin to this atomistic theory. Quite literally, Epicurean atoms fall in the vast void. They are constantly moving, but they also have this spin or swerve. They don't have a predefined trajectory because occasionally they spin randomly. And these random deviations basically don't make the universe a totally or mostly predetermined place. Stoics were unimpressed. Epicurus in many ways followed the Plato's idea that the gods most probably exist, but they are perfect beings, not the largely, imperfect creatures from the traditional Greek myths. That's just stupid stories people tell. Epicurus went a little further and declared that since the gods are so perfect, they just don't need to interfere in the lives of people. They're fine. They don't care about anything. And you can be like them. Basically, all you need is ataraxia, tranquility of your mind, and aponia, absence of pain. In the end, you will die. You will dissolve, and that's fine too. You won't feel any pain if you don't exist. Ta-da! And now to the sad part, the sources. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of sources on Epicureanism. It's not Stoicism, where the majority of works, especially from the early and middle periods of the Stoic philosophy, just disappeared, except for small portions here and there. But at the same time, we have a number of complete works from the period of Roman Stoicism. No, things are different with Epicureanism because only one full work of the Epicurean philosophy survives. And this book is actually a big poem from the Roman period, De Rerum Natura by Lucretius Carus. And there is a certain possibility it is not even an authentic book, but a Renaissance forgery. Everything else is just bits and pieces. So while the main doctrines of Epicureanism are more or less clear, we have fragments, we have references. We still wish we knew more. Because of this problem, it's very hard to recommend to read some particular ancient authors if you're interested in Epicureanism. When you're talking about Stoics, you have certain problems with the sources, but you can easily name a number of important ancient texts on the subject or important compilations like fragments of the early Stoics by Hans von Arnim, even though you don't have any full works of the said early Stoics, like literally zero works. And when you're talking about Epicureanism, you have severe problems with the original sources. You just mentioned De Rerum Natura and then try to run away to evade any further questions. Or, as I did, make a reference to Plato's Philebus and job well done. Good information on the subject, brilliant dialogue. But Plato wasn't an Epicurean. Plato was Plato. Then, as always with the Greek philosophy, you have Diogenes Laertius and his lives and opinions of eminent philosophers, which is something like the first book ever on the history of ancient philosophy, and sometimes practically the only source on a large number of the philosophers. But it is full of the anecdotes of very doubtful authenticity, and it has a section on Epicurus, but chances are you're not gonna find there what you're looking for. And there are quotes of different Epicureans here and there, scattered around the ancient sources, including very nice and inspiring quotes by Epicurus himself. And part of these quotes were actually preserved by the Stoics of all people, or the principal ideological enemy. So Epicureanism was a well-established philosophy. They had meaningful polemics with the opponents. We know that prominent ancient philosophers like Posidonius, the Stoic, wrote whole books discussing Epicurean philosophy, and bits and pieces found on the Villa of the Papyri in Herculaneum indicate an Epicurean commentary of the works of Diogenes of Babylon, another Stoic. As I mentioned, Stoics were the main rival. But we just don't have the text, and sometimes it may look like that Epicureanism is intellectually inferior to the Stoic philosophy, and how they even were able to keep meaningfully discuss something for centuries. Probably because there were things to discuss, and Epicureanism was stronger than we might think today. If you have something to say, I strongly encourage you to leave a comment. Also, don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and, well, you can watch this video 5 times or 10 times at double speed. Next time, we're gonna talk very briefly again about cynicism. So, thanks for watching and rewatching, and see you soon.